Good evening, everyone, and welcome to week 4. I am going to be flying solo tonight with you as Dr. Stedman is at a conference, and during this time, they are doing a ceremony. So he will not be with us, but he's here in spirit with us, and just so sorry that he has to miss tonight. But there may be a time when I have to miss. And so we just cover for each other like this. So I will try to do him proud as we take a look at week 4. First of all, for those of you who are still with us, you need to pat yourself on the back. You have made it to week 4. And by now, I'm hoping that you are starting to settle in to the pattern of things and the routine and can see how you can manage your time. It's a lot and it's quite overwhelming in the beginning, but congratulations. I think this is a big hurdle. If you've made it this far, you're going to be fine. So with that said, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get into the agenda. Rhonda, can you see my agenda? Kim, can you see my agenda?
Yes, ma'am, we can see
Okay,
it.
thank you. So the first thing we like to talk about is just some overall comments about the task that you just turned in Sunday evening. And let me say, from my class, you guys did an awesome job. I was very pleased with the depth and complexity that you went into in your task 2 as you examined and facilitated that PLC to the most pressing need. The most common issue that I saw was that not everyone got to meet with their principal or wrote about meeting with their principal. So that's the first thing that I want to do is show you where that goes. Now, Dr. Stedman said that he had lots of class of candidates who they got it on the first try. So that means you had everything completely done and you were ready to go. So I want to back up and I want to pull up the example that you have in your Blackboard shell. When in doubt, always pull your example. This is at the end of prompt 1. Let me give you a little context. This is where you have started discussing how you did a collaborative data analysis. And you're coming down here to this section on most pressing need. Now, God, let me tell you a little trick about these evaluators. They will not, let me underscore this, they will not hunt in your paper for things. So we know kind of what they look for. Your last sentence in this section, most pressing need, needs to reiterate or to tell your most pressing need. The very last sentence. So that is a key point. Now, let's go into prompt 2, the data presentation. See, they don't spend a lot of time on your work. I'll tell you, they don't. But this is prompt 2 where you're telling the story of your data analysis with the figures. And your figures were great, by the way. Last paragraph, very last paragraph. You have to talk about your presentation to your principal or someone on your admin team. Now, I know that many of you have a principal or assistant principal on your admin team. If your principal is on the admin team, you're golden, because all you have to do is talk about the principal was a part of your meeting, and that reiterate the agenda for that meeting that most of you created. Of course, all of you created an agenda for task 2. Reiterate the agenda, and then most of you created a slideshow. If you did not create a slideshow, you will need to create it. So right here, you've got to show where you have presented this data analysis and your most pressing need to your principal. It always ends again with your most pressing need. Okay? If your principal was part of the team, you could even say, I did not have to have a separate presentation. This person didn't word it like that, but you can tell that they were part of that team, was present for the presentation that she did to her PLC members for task 2. So that's kind of how you handle that. And remember, I want to go back to my agenda. At the end of this week, by 6 p.m. on Sunday, you have to have your task 3 draft that we're going to talk about tonight and all revisions for task 2. Now, your final review, if you made a 50 on it and Dr. Stedman or I told you, go ahead and submit for in the final Dropbox, you're fine. You don't need to do a thing. But if you did not make a 50 and there are revisions you make, you've got to go back into this same discussion board where you created your first submission and submit again by Thursday at 6 p.m. Let's say that you made a 40 when I gave you your score on Sunday evening. That means unless I was 10 points late, that means I've got some revisions. I need to make sure that I do my revisions and do them completely, and that they are back in that same discussion board thread for me to look at by 6 o'clock on Thursday. If you don't put them back in there and skip that step and just go to the final Dropbox, I'll look at them there, but you lose your chance to make this draft a 50. So always put it back into the draft and let me look at it again, or Dr. Stedman look at it again. Your grade should go to a 50 if you made all revisions. We tell you to put it in the final Dropbox. Don't skip this step unless you've made a 50 the first time out, and we tell you to go ahead and put it in the Dropbox. I had a few people who were confused on that and went directly to the final Dropbox. All right, with that said, again, good job, nice work on task 2. Now we're going to talk about task 3. I want to give you just a little reminder very quickly. This is our graphic that I use to talk about the school improvement process and how what we are doing focuses on this process. APSL Task 1, you established your PLC and held your organizational meeting. In Task 2, you did your data dive and you identified your most pressing need. In Task 3, this is where we're going to do research Yes, we're going to do research on your most pressing need. As educators, and some of you did this, as soon as you identified your most pressing need, your PLC immediately wants to start talking about solutions. And on some of yours, I put save this for task 3. We want to start brainstorming about things we need to do. You may have been to a conference and heard about a new program designed to increase reading comprehension, or the school down the roads, 8 miles down the road, they are scoring crazy on their EOGs and state assessments. And we want to look at what they're doing. When you don't even know, number one, does that school 8 miles down the road even have the same demographics that you have, or have exactly the same need? We want to start grabbing things, picking things out of the air as solutions. Well, you don't do it that way. You do your research. And that's what task 3 is about. You're going to be hitting Dover Library hard. And I encourage you to start tomorrow, if not after class tonight. And you are going to research 2 things. What are the root causes to my area of need? And secondly, what are possible solutions? Okay. Root causes and possible solutions. So let's go back. I'm going to teach from the APSL example, if everybody's okay with that. This is task 3. You have 2 prompts in this task. The first prompt is where you do your research. You need to have your research completed and compiled by the time you get in to your next PLC meeting. Okay? At the beginning of task 3, for the evaluator, reiterate your most pressing need. That's right underneath prompt 1, most pressing need. Next, we're going to do a literature review. And friends, I'm going to write on this. It's not going to be on your copy. The literature review is researching root causes. I can't spell and talk at the same time. Researching your root causes. So you might want to write that down. So I'm going to go to the library. And this person, they had their biggest area of need was, one thing is middle school science, and they even got it down to the specific standards. Now, you're not going to find research in your Dover Library on these specific standards. You're going to research more globally. Issues that lead to problems in middle school science.
This meeting is being recorded.
So, with that said, did I record? I hope I did. With that said, let me stop sharing, just check. Yes, I'm recording. Okay, with that said, you first do a literature review, and that literature review has to have at least 3 references. Now, your literature review here is just like the literature review you did in task 1 on PLCs. You write it in the narrative form. So you've got to have 3 resources. So this person starts talking about instructional practices that are going, and things that are going to be causes of the most pressing need. And you can see, I think that's her second reference, her third. And she may have gotten a fourth. Again, your literature review is on root causes, researching root causes. You got to know why it's happening before you can start talking about solutions. Now, that is written in a narrative form, literature review. Okay. The next thing you do is an annotated bibliography. On your annotated bibliography, you are looking for possible solutions. You identify causes in the lit review. You identify possible solutions. Now, on your agenda, it says we have 5 regular resources and 3 online resources. So what we're calling regular resources are just non-online resources, things that you've gone to a journal article about, or programs that come up in your research about possible solutions. This one, an analysis of notebook writing. And those, if you have any here teach science, or even in elementary school, teaching science in elementary school, you know, notebook writing has been found to improve student learning. So notice the format of this annotated bibliography. Here you have your reference. This reference is written just like a reference in your reference section. Okay, same format, same APA, double spaced, and hanging indent. So once you write this citation here, or resource reference citation here, in your annotated bibliography, you can pop it down and put it in your references. And then what they do, or what you should do, is give just a summary of writing, doing science and writing about it. And this is just a summary of the writing that can increase student learning in a science classroom. That's a regular resource. Or we might think of it as an instructional practice. That one could be considered a program, but I don't consider that a program. That's an instructional practice. The next reference she found, or he, was instructional practices in middle school science classroom. Wow. In that one, she should be able to garner several kinds of practices that she's going to bring to the team. Notice I start out always with my complete citation, a reference, and I use the hanging indent. My hanging indent continues throughout my description. Okay. Resource number 3, the effects of relaxation and visualization on information retention in middle 5th grade science. Citation, summary. Next. Now, in this one, we have to have 5 non-online resources. Now, this one's talking about thinking maps and how that improves student learning. This one talks about another methods and strategies. And that's your 5 references for solutions to address my most pressing need. Then you put this heading in and separate your online digital tools. This person selected flow vocabulary, very popular. Notice the citation or reference is a little bit different, but she still got the hanging indent on her text. Mystery science. Study Island, or her 3 online resources. So what I'm going to do is, let me stop share, and I want to go to Dover Library, and let's look at that just a moment. Let me see if I can find it. Dover Library is always found on your content page under University Resources. So I'm hitting on Dover Library. All right, Marissa Russell. What's
Yes.
the first thing, if I'm looking at my literature review, what am I going to be searching for? Causes or solutions?
Causes.
Very good. So I've already done one search here, causes of poor reading comprehension in elementary schools. So I'll pull it up. I get 33 results. Remember, I'm only going to look at things that have full text online. And I think it goes down a little bit. There's where you can pull information about causes. Now, those of you who are elementary teachers, you know one of the big causes is children are poor readers. Their comprehension goes down if they're struggling readers, such as they have poor vocabulary, they have poor word attack skills, poor phonics skills. You're going to find a lot of that through here. So I first search causes. And who can tell me, I can't see everybody's name. Let me just call on somebody. I'll be good in calling somebody in my class. Sam, how many references do I need in my lit section?
You did in the lit section 3.
3. In my lit section, I need 3. So I'm going to select here. Now, that's for my literature review, written just like your literature review was written in task 1. Now I'm going to search for solutions to poor reading comprehension. Let's see what comes up there. All right, I get 25 results here. Again, full online text. All right. Now these, I'm hoping that these are going to be about you've got to do 5, remember, of non-online resources. So this is a whole synopsis of reading comprehension solutions and strategies. So here is where you're going to find about the 5 non-online resources. You may find an online resource here as well, but typically that's just a Google Scholar search. Your online resources is just a Google Scholar search. All right. Let me stop right here. And I'm going to stop share and ask for questions on task 3, prompt 1. Any questions? Julia.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I have already kind of started on this and was noticing that in a lot of the articles where there are problems, they do offer solutions. So is it okay to use some of those sources to write those solutions as long as they're not digitally based?
That's, yes, you can.
Okay.
I would make some of them different.
Okay.
And you probably will, because your root causes, you only have to have 3. So yeah, you can repeat those, but get others as well. Good question. Anybody
you.
else? S. King, where are you?
I'm right here. I just want
Okay.
to clarify. I'm not real bright. So in the first part, in the lit review, we're supposed to use online resources. And then for the, no,
No. The literature review is your researching with 3 references, the root causes. What are the causes of poor reading comprehension? Okay. You don't do online until you do the annotated bibliography. And there is where, how many total resources and references am I going to have in the annotated bibliography?
5,
5
8.
or 8?
8.
8?
8. Yeah, 8 total. You've got 5 non-online, 3 online, total of 8. Where will I most likely find online resources?
Online?
Just Google Scholar, right? Yeah.
Do the online resources have to be resources that our school are using, or does it matter?
It does matter. Bobby, good question. Let's say that your school has a subscription to license to, oh, I don't know, Nearpod, okay? Or Flocabulary. I don't even think you have to have a license for that, do you? If they have a license for that and they're already using it, you cannot use that as one of your suggestions. Can somebody tell me why that would be the case? Sam Patterson?
If you already have that, then it's not helping your cause already.
Very good. Now let's say that you're using vocabulary, but only some of the teachers are using it some of the time. It's not being implemented with fidelity. Then you could use it, but you have to justify that. Okay? Schools have poured thousands of dollars into online programs. And online programs will only work if they're used with fidelity. Every online program out there will have a research base to them, particularly if you're using Title I funds to purchase. They have to have a research base. And that research base or research is only valid if it's implemented the way they say it should be implemented. Okay, Rico, question?
Yes, got a couple. I just want to just make sure I understand it. So the online resources, the 3 online resources are tools that we can use to help the kids with their with the pressing need. And Google Scholar is someplace I can go to find some of those.
You can just Google Scholar or even just Google, because those programs will pop up.
Okay.
But you still want to say, you still want to put in online programs to address poor reading comprehension or whatever your need is. Okay.
Okay. One more question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because I was thinking of because my pressing need is reading, and I'm an encore teacher. I don't teach reading, so I was like, is this like the task I'm building? Is it for the school as a whole, or should I approach it as, okay, gotcha?
It's for the school as a whole.
Thank you so much.
Okay, guys, I want to move on, and we'll have time at the end for other questions. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to prompt 2. In prompt 2, you're going to use a lot of visuals, and you're focusing on your online tool. Okay? Tools. All right, it talks a little bit about the meeting here. And then think of it as prompt 2 as this is where I'm going to analyze those online tools. This particular person used vocabulary, mystery science, and study island right here. Okay. And what she does is you work your group, you talk about the strategies, the non-online strategies, yes, and hopefully your team will embrace some of those. But prompt 2 is really about your online. All right, what she has led the PLC to do is a bubble map to compare and contrast those 3 online tools. So the first one is a vocabulary bubble map. And I know you can't see it on my screen, how they've looked at all the different pluses or minuses for that. And then the next figure, mystery science, did the same kind of thing there. And then they did study island. Those are my visuals. After looking up each individual online tools, I suggested we do a comparison chart. Everybody must have this comparison chart. Evaluators will look for them. Now, the left-hand side can be different. I wouldn't change it. It's here. It's a good one. Use it. But this comparison chart quickly shows you, the pluses and minuses of the different online programs. And guess what? The last paragraph says, we decided which one we were going to use. All right. All right. Let me stop share. That's prompt 2. Let me see if I can just pull up and show you. Let me just pull up. Ah, right there. I have searched that one before. Here's some online schools that are tools that are going to come up. That's an app. I'm not going to do an app. I'm going to go on down.
What you got?
If everybody would please mute, check your mute button. I don't know what that is, but let's look at it. Lexia Learning.
It's based on the letters course.
Okay. Every one of these programs, this is the website. Look right here, research. Every program, they know that school districts cannot use their federal dollars unless they can show research. And right here is where you get some of that. You need to bring that research in. Product efficacy. Marissa, I'll get you in just a second, okay? It tells about core 5 body of evidence. And you can pull some of this, just cite it, as being one of the pluses to make maybe your bubble map. Okay? Always go to that research portion of the website. And you can get it. Okay. Let me go back. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't want to pull that up. Got too many windows open. Okay. So let's go back to prompt 2 and summarize. Think a sec. What am I doing impromptu? Now I'm going to call on somebody.
Discussing the research you found on the practices and online sources.
Online, you're focusing on your online sources. All right, Tatiana, where is the best place I can find information on online sources?
Google Scholar.
Just Google it. And what am I going to look for when I get to their website? Somebody answer out.
The research.
Research.
The research tab. And that's what you're going to use to summarize and bring. This is your narrative work. They may have done a vocabulary, or she may have had this done before she went into the meeting and talked through the research. Well, no, it says here they looked as a team and looked up the components. Okay, cool. But you have to know how much time they've got to do that. Is figure 13 optional? Danielle, is figure 13 optional?
No, ma'am. It is not.
Can I make my own chart?
You're more than welcome to, but I would highly suggest not to.
I'm going to let you start teaching this class. Okay. Now I want to stop, share, and so I can see more of your faces. Let's talk about the task 3, questions. You're going to spend a lot of time going in and doing a lot of research on your own and presenting that research to your PLC. Marissa, question. We can't hear you. Marissa, we can't hear you for some reason. I'm going to move on to Danielle. Danielle, go ahead.
I did have a quick question with the digital tools section. So on the helpful hints document that you shared with us, and then the one that you went through, the full example, the helpful hints, when they talked about the digital tools, she also talked about the implementation like within the PLC. And then the one that we reviewed just now, it had nothing. It was just kind of about the digital tools. Is either way okay, or is there one over the other?
Either way is fine. You are just leading them through an analysis of the online digital tool. Don't forget, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Don't forget in task 4, don't forget to talk about strategies, okay? The non-online resources. But you are doing the compare and contrast chart on your online resources. Marissa, have you got it working now?
I think I do. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can't see you, but that's fine.
Okay, I'm doing this on my cell phone because internet is horrible.
I hear you.
So our online resources, we can just go to Google and just Google like what our problem is. We can Google that. That's going to be our online resources.
Now you can just Google online resources for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you're not going to, if you identified again specific standards, you're not going to find anything on that. You're going to have to be more broad. Okay.
Okay.
Now, that's right, Marissa. You got it.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? We're going to have a more thorough question and answer session at the end. Oh, but for right now, I want to go on and talk about your first Zoom assignment, I think. You know what? Let's go ahead and look a little bit at task 4. Some of you are going to be, I want you to see in task 4 just what you're doing in task 4. In task 4 is your culmination of everything you've done, and you are putting it in and making a plan. Okay. Task 4 is about your action plan. That's where you're going to talk about strategies. You're going to talk about resources. You're going to talk about implementation and monitoring. Okay. And you must use, again, one of those non-negotiables, you must use the template. I'm not going to go through all of this tonight, but I do want to show you the template. You must use this template to develop your action plan. Now, I like a template. I like to think of a template as a graphic organizer. This is what you want to work with when you meet with your group on task 4, taking all of the strategies and online resources. What are we going to write down as activities? Okay, that we're going to do. And what's our timeline and so on and so forth. We'll go over all that. But you've got to get this filled out with your PLC for task 4. That's not this week. That's the next week. But I
Dr.
want you to,
Revis,
I
could
want
you
to see
show
where
us
you're going.
that template? Can you share your screen and show us it?
I'm sorry. Did I not share my screen?
No, ma'am.
I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. This is the template. I forget. I go in and out and I forget. I'm sorry. This is, you'll find this in that same example. Everything should have this same template. Okay. And here are your activities you're going to do, timeline. Looks a lot like your school improvement plans, doesn't it? A lot. You'll have short-term, midterm, and long-term goals here. We'll talk about all that next week. But this is why you're doing the research. We're just not going to start cherry picking out of the sky. We're just not going to look 8 miles down the road and pull in whatever program they're going to do. We're just not going to go to a conference and get the next new thing. We're going to do our research. All right. Questions? All right. When I go on down, summarize what is due at this end of this week. All right. All final revisions are due to me and Dr. Stedman Thursday at 6 p.m. if you had to do them. If not, you hit this 6 p.m. deadline on Sunday. And APSL Task 3 draft is due. I wish we didn't say this word draft, because to some people that means, well, it doesn't have to be complete. It doesn't have to be my best work. Please don't waste our time by throwing something together just to say you've got something in. Do it, and do it to your best of your ability. And then don't forget your peer reviews. They are due on Tuesday before class next week at 5 p.m. All right, I'm going to back up now, and I'm going to talk about your first Zoom session. Guys, you don't do that this week. That Zoom session is by the end of week 5. But I do want to introduce it to you because you've got to get organized for it. Okay. I want to pull up, and this is and you should be in your module for this week. And these are about, I just call it professional dialogue starters. You and your Zoom team, first of all, you're going to decide on who's going to be the Zoom master. Now, we have 4 Zoom sessions, so everybody's going to get a chance to be the Zoom master. You know, this is probably your easier one, so or easiest, you might want to go ahead and volunteer for it. All you're doing is you are just discussing professionally tasks 1 and 2. Now, this is not due this week. This is for next week. But you do need to go ahead and decide who's going to do it. If I am the Zoom master, I must go ahead and create a task, not a task stream. I'm sorry, I'm getting off task. I must go ahead and create my YouTube account, because I'm going to post it on YouTube and record it and upload it and post it on YouTube and send it out to all my team members so that they can post it and turn it in for a grade. But here's what you're doing. First of all, always do an introduction. I like it when your name appears, but in the Zoomcast, but go through and introduce yourself just quickly. And then the Zoom master is going to lead a discussion on some of these. You don't have to do them all, but you need to talk about task 1 and task 2. So start out with talking about your experience with your PLC. Many of you are experienced PLC facilitators. Some of you not. Share what went well, what you wish you'd done differently, and what you've learned. Then go on and talk about task 2, which was your data dive. What went well? What did you learn about data? And what you learned about disaggregating your data that you may not have known. And I know a couple of you said that your principal directed you to what they wanted, the data points they wanted you to look at, but told you to look at everything. And what they told you was not the issue. Now, I don't know what your principal is going to do about that. They may want you to stay with what he originally said, he or she, or she may want you to go ahead and look at what you found and carry on. See, that's why you have your presentation with your principal if they're not a part of that committee or team. So you know, are they going to let you research and really delve into that most pressing need that you identified? Now, these discussions are not a time for you to start complaining or sharing your frustrations. I mean, yeah, you share what didn't go well and what you would have done differently. This is your reflection time. Remember, as classroom teachers, we talk about reflection is such an important part of our learning process. This is time for you to reflect and share. It is not a gripe session. It's not a session to start complaining about the work you have to do. This is to learn from each other. And then, end about what's your biggest challenge. And I bet it's time for most of you, just the time. And we like to hear about how you think you've grown in your leadership skills. But anything else you want to share. Now, as the Zoom master, you are responsible for facilitating this discussion. And I would ask somebody to be my timekeeper. I would prepare an agenda. If you have, excuse me. If you have 4 people in your Zoom team and everybody shares 2 minutes on each of these questions, you're gonna, by the time you do that, you're gonna be way over your 45-minute limit on your free Zoom account. You may not want everybody in your meeting to answer every question, but as the Zoom master, you make that decision. You make that session flow. If somebody starts dominating, you've got to find a way to nicely move on. And those of you who have led PLCs before, You know, there's always somebody in that PLC that likes to talk, and they want to hear themselves talk and say much of nothing. I despise those kind of people, but there are skills and techniques that you have to learn as a facilitator to keep those people quiet, or everybody else is going to shut down if you don't. I do want to see everybody share, but I don't want to see one person or even two people take over. If it's your turn to share, you decide. As a Zoom master, you need to send that agenda out ahead of time. You need to think about, how's the best way to share? What strategy am I going to use if Sam starts dominating the discussion and takes 10 minutes to go over what his experience through the PLC? You can't do that. You gotta have a strategy. A lot of times you have an agenda with each of you have 1 minute to share. It's great if you do an icebreaker. It's particular this being the first time you're doing a PLC Zoom. But after this first time, I would not do an icebreaker. Just get on to your business. So each of you are going to write up a reflection about this, but you have to be prepared. There is some prep work that needs to be done. The most successful Zoom teams have an agenda that's sent out ahead of time, so everybody knows what's going to be expected and what they're going to be expected to respond to. You can make that collaborative. You can send it out way ahead of time and ask for input. They decide what order we're going to share. You might do a round robin, but I would say if you're talking about this PLC, I would combine some of these so that when Marissa's talking, she's not just going to do one and then move on to Sam and then move on to Stephen and so on and so forth. We're going to talk about a couple of these, what went well and what I wish I'd done differently. Okay. And you can weave that question into this and then come back and share what you learned. Or you could do it all together. That's a short one. This one's going to take the most time, I think. But you decide how you're going to take turns in this discussion so there's not a lot of lag time and there's not somebody who takes over. Don't be the person that takes over. Okay? Don't let that be you. All right, now I'm going to try to go back to my agenda and see where we are. All right, I've done that. I've already done glance to task 4. Ooh, task 3 and portfolio. I did not get but one email that said you could not activate. And that was a person who was at Gardner Webb beforehand and already had an account. So I'm assuming everybody has been able to activate task 3. Okay. I am going to, what time are we on? You know what, guys? My voice is about to give out. You can tell I'm not used to teaching the full hour. I'm going to wait and do your competency folio next week. If that's okay, we'll go into task stream. There is a video archived about how to do it. You can look at it or I can show you. But let's wait till next week on that. All right, we're at the time where if you feel real good about everything, and let me let you look at that clock. We are under an hour right now. Woohoo! A lot of it is that you're used to things and you know how to do things. And some of your procedural issues that you had in, the previous weeks, you kind of get it now. So we don't have to stop and discuss that. But if you feel good about what you need to do this week, task 3, have a good week and goodbye. But if you want to stay, I will stay until the end of the session. Have a good week, guys, for those of you who are signing off. And we will see you next Tuesday. All right, Nicole, you have your hand up.
Just one quick question. I was
Sure.
doing some internet searches while you were talking, and sometimes when I do the online research, it brings me to research articles. So would
Yeah.
that be okay? That's acceptable as long as it's widely accessible.
No, I don't like you using articles from Google Scholar.
Okay.
Go to your library. Now, if you have some, let's say you have a topic that's so narrow, you can't find anything, then
Mhm.
go there. Okay. Your
Okay.
first step though is use your library on resources.
No, I mean for the 3, so you have the 5 scholarly articles and then the
Okay.
3 online articles.
Oh,
The
yeah. You're right. Yeah. Those are
Okay.
fine. Sorry. I'm sorry. I misunderstood your question.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Bobby.
Hey, I just wanted to make sure I understood when we was talking about the online programs. You said we can't use the programs at the school unless they are already using them the way it's supposed to be used.
No, just the opposite, Bobby.
Uh,
If your school has purchased a program, but it's not being used by everybody with Fidelity, then you could select that.
okay.
Now, because some of these programs are pretty pricey. If you've got a program in your building and people are not using it or not using it with Fidelity, that could be one of your online resources.
Okay.
But you need to say that up front.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank
Julia?
you for that.
Sure.
Okay, I had 2 questions. One of the questions I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer. I did email Dr. Stedman. So our class like dwindled in numbers, and I'm only left with one person on my Zoom team. So do you think that he'll change that? Or do you think
Yes, he will, Julia. He'll even them up. He'll do
Okay.
that. He'll do that before he probably will do it as soon as he gets back from his conference. I had to do that some this week too. And I still have one person that is still on the roster. I'm going to keep her there until I get an official drop. But she's in a group of 4 or 5, so it doesn't matter. But yours is kind of critical.
Yes, that's what he told us, just to review each other, like anybody, for peer reviews, but I wanted to start being prepared to like get an agenda together and do that. I was just curious. Okay.
Yeah. He will. Okay,
And
what's your
then-
second question?
So on the Zoom slideshow that you were showing us, basically we'll pull questions as the Zoom master from each of those different categories to talk about, correct?
Right. You don't have to do all of them.
Okay. Thank
Remember,
you.
the key thing here is, and I don't think I said this, we want to see the Zoom Masters leadership, and we want to see others. We want the others to talk about their leadership within these 2 tasks. So it's talk about questions that would help people be able to demonstrate and talk about their leadership. Okay. Okay. Anybody else? I don't know if I'm seeing. Yes. Is it Sam? I don't know your first name. I'm sorry.
Oh, my name is Stuart. That's all right. Thank you, Dr. Revis. I was wondering, so I submitted my APSL 2 last Thursday, and I scored well. I got a 50 out of 50. I'm just concerned because I did not incorporate any slides or pictures of a presentation to my administrators. It's a very small school, and I talk to them regularly, and that may have been apparent in my narrative. and I've already submitted for the final, like actually about an hour and a half ago. So
Let it ride. Let it ride, Stuart. If Dr. Stedman has told you to move on, move on.
okay, thank you very much.
Anybody else? Savannah.
I have one very specific APA question. As far as numbers, like writing out numbers in words, what about in titles of classes, like Math 1, English 2?
If they're title of classes, I would just do them like we typically do them.
Okay. Follow up to that. One of my statistics is 9.5%. Can I use numerals for that, or do I need to write it out?
If you use, I think, okay, because I'm not an APA expert, but I think if you use the numeral 9.5, it only can be followed by a percent sign.
Okay. Okay.
But
perfect.
you never want to begin or a sentence with a numeral.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Perfect.
If you use the word percent, you should write out the number. But
Okay.
I think that's correct. But I would use the 9.5 with a percent sign.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Dr. Revis, this is Felicia Jumper.
Yes. How are you, Felicia?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
So I just want to know, did you want to talk over the phone or do you want us to talk like now?
We'll talk as soon as everybody signs off, if that's okay.
Okay, that's
I'll
great.
stop.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll stop recording. Felicia, remind me to stop recording.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Stuart, you got another one?
Yeah, I'm not real bright, as there was some confusion for me and maybe with a couple other folks. When you're talking about online resources, I guess the etymology of the term resources, I'm thinking resources when it comes to my writing versus resources for the classroom. So when we're talking about online resources for our narratives and for what we're doing for this task, it's okay if they're all online. Is that correct?
Well,
Like, so do I have to have physical books and magazines?
you've got to have 5 solutions that you are selecting from non-online resources. Those are what we typically call instructional strategies. Okay.
Okay.
3 online resources. Typically, we talk those about being programs, maybe online programs, like some of the ones we looked up, those kinds of things. So am I answering your question, Stuart?
I think so. Yeah. Based on, I'm just making sure, because I've already started on my online resources portion. I just wanted to make sure I'm doing everything right. I think I'm set. Thank you so much.
Okay. Savannah, did you have another question?
Yeah, just kind of following up with that. So we can look like online in the Dover Library, for example, and find things that say full text and use those as a not online resource for that part. Is that correct?
No.
So there's no way to find those 5?
Hold on. You're talking about in your search engine in Dover Library?
Yes.
That has nothing to do with what we're talking about here. Okay.
That's where we're all confused then, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can understand that. I see what you're saying.
We're just trying to figure out if we need to like make a trip to the library of whatever university is closest to us to find non-online resources.
Non-online resources has nothing to do with the search engine. Okay. In Dover Library. It just means instructional strategies that would not be using any kind of online technology tools.
Oh, okay. This is clicking more now. We all thought it was like, well, not all of us, but some of us were talking, we were like, so where do we go find this stuff? Okay, I understand now. Okay.
I
think it's the semantics of the word resources is kind of confusing, because there's resources for writing and resources for the classroom and a bit of confusion. Thank you for clarifying that.
I understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Savannah, guys. I'm sorry that was confusing.
No,
I
it's
see
fine.
your-
It makes good sense now.
Okay, okay. Anybody else? Okay, if you all have a good week, sign off. Felicia and I are going to stay online for a little conference. I'm going to stop